Yeah, thanks everyone. Good meditation tonight. Cool stuff from the week. Anybody?
A good week. It was easy, and life's good.
Good.
Things seem to be flowing.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's nice when it gets back in that groove, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like today, I had to find a warranty from a washer we bought 4.5 years ago, and I don't have any receipts or anything. And somehow I made one phone call, and it all just like worked out.
Yeah.
And got the repair schedule. And it was like I thought it was going to be this big process,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like nothing.
Yeah.
So it was cool, and that's been happening a lot.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah. The flow.
Yeah, I've been seeing things happen like I'll go to the store and there's a bunch of people in front of me, and the girl opened another register. I was way back in line. She's like,
Yep.
okay, great. Traffic stopping where there's no stop sign to let me go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a couple of those this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Anybody else? Fun stuff? Or not so fun? No picky. Whatever you're working with.
Really
Yeah.
feeling sorry for myself.
All right.
Yeah, just playing the victim.
Yeah.
A lot lately. But
Well,
I don't know. I had a realization coming in here. I don't remember what it was.
yeah.
It felt good. Oh yeah, it was like I'm learning more just to like I don't know. I'll like hear what people say, but I don't actually hear what they say. Like there's just a knowing that knows what they say, and so that stuff's been cool. I feel like just a lot of things been stirring up a lot of
Uh-huh.
clear things.
Okay. Well, you're shining pretty bright right now. So that's okay. Yeah.
I'll say something along those lines too. For a while, I've been having self-pity and anger thoughts, and I'm so tired of hurting myself because I knew that's what was going on, and I was seeing it, and it's just so ridiculous. So I finally decided to do a few lessons in the course again, like the same day it got better.
Yeah.
So, finally, but I was not loving what I was doing to myself.
Yeah.
And I couldn't seem to just stop it, to show me something different, or it wasn't working. So,
Yeah.
so it's better now.
Yeah.
It's not happy thoughts, but it's not unhappy thoughts
Mhm.
either, so I'll take that.
Step up.
Yeah.
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 Well,
Yeah.
okay.
And I had a few, I don't know, hours or so where I was upset about something, and I could feel like that old pattern of wanting to just like kind of like shut off my heart space, sort of, in a way, to like kind of like, I don't know, just like sometimes when I get angry, it just feels like this like kind of like I'm putting up like a wall almost, you know. And I recognized that, and I knew that I didn't want that to happen, you know. And it was like kind of like, I don't know, like we've talked about before, like sometimes if you feel like almost like you want to be angry, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew that this was not something that would be like justified to be angry about, you know. So but yeah, and I just like did some Reiki on my heart, and it really helped to just kind of like open that space back up again. So.
Okay. Well, I got a couple short topics to throw around, and then I did want to talk about defenselessness tonight, and our story, how we tie those two together. So that'll be more of the theme of it. But, again, just back to the very basics, that there's a part of us that just wants to be at peace, that knows life should be good, easy, kind, loving, a dance, fun. And a lot of us, and in a lot of ways, have been taught that place is a foolish place. Children have it, and you got to teach it out of them so they can become respectable adults in time. we have put away our access to that place. And this awakening, mindfulness, is learning where that is in us again and how to start living from there again. And it's not a place of irresponsibility. It can deal with everything in the world that needs dealt with, but it can do it peacefully and happily. And why not? Well, that's the big question that we need to keep asking ourselves. You know, like in Susie's example, she says she could actually feel the part that, like, oh, I want to get mad about this. Well, why do I want to get mad versus just stay in peace? And awareness is about bringing our own attention to what goes on in there. We make those kind of decisions all the time, and we decide to be angry and it causes us a problem. We decide to be anxious or fearful and it causes us a loss or another problem. And this is just about learning, oh, I do have that place of joyful peace that I can live from, and learning to choose to return to it instead of activating our programs from the past of defense and anger and justification. So just always that reminder. And the whole thing is based on our experiences. It's not based on beliefs or doctrines or anything. The teachings I offer are practices, like how to look in your own mind, find your own place of peace, how to use it. And one thing I've seen lately is we know in that place of stillness, when we're really deep in it, there's no thought and no emotion at all. And yet it impels us to do things. And we know somehow without thought, like, I just know this is what I need to do, or I just do it without thinking. And we know we can trust that. And it takes a learning of experiences that space always produces a better outcome than my thinking brain and my justifications and my fears and anger and all of that. So it's about learning through these experiences. But anyway, we feel that space without any intellectual knowledge to it. And then our mind has to do something with that. It has to describe it. It has to build a structure to explain it. And that's where these ideas of spirituality and religion and such come from. Is the mind is attempting to define and explain this natural state in us that is just simply whole, happy, joyful, loving, kind, and sees life as a happy dance. And it builds any or all kinds of greatly complex theories and stories, and to justify this and to give it a divine purpose, or it's the will of God, when it's just my own being that says, I just want to be happy. And it's like, I need a reason to let myself be happy. And so on the way, we each adopt a personal path, as we call it, which may be sharing in another teaching that already exists, or it may be a very personal way of exploring how we can live. But all it's all really about is learning to trust that desire to go back to peace. And at some point, we will trust it again. And the path or the adventure is that process of learning to trust it. And that's it. It does everything else. It will transform us. It'll transform our thinking patterns. It'll transform our emotional packages from the past. It will give us guidance in what's best to do at the moment. That is the thing that has been called spiritual or God or Holy Spirit or divine. But it comes through us. It's our own life, which has amazing capabilities. And however you want to associate that with the rest of the universe, just have fun. We all were going to have some ideas of how it works, with seeming me feeling like, but I'm part of everything in the oneness, and just play. Enjoy it. You can't get it wrong, so quit trying to get it right. If you can relax about that, then it gets a lot easier. So. And that brings me to part 2 of the little thingies. I haven't done this one for a while, but I think I need to re-emphasize it occasionally. And that is, there cannot possibly be anything wrong with you. Every person needs to know that. True, we may have adopted and learned patterns of behavior that aren't producing the results we want so well, and we may want to change those, but it doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. We are all life. We show up on this planet. We're in crazy situations from day one, our family, our neighbors, our society, then our schools, and then our jobs, and it's like all of that, we're taking it in and we're trying to put together a program that'll work. And for some, if it's been a traumatic early start, it's a very defensive program. For some, it's a very aggressive program. But all it is in any of us, whatever we've constructed is what I call our person. It's just our best guess at how we can live life on this planet. It can't be wrong. And there's not something wrong with you because you put together or allowed yourself to absorb patterns and ideas that seem, with your limited knowledge at the time, that seem like they would be the most useful. I don't know why it's so tricky for us to move from thinking, well, if there's nothing wrong with me, then why do I need to change anything? Which carries kind of a guiltful look at our view of things. And yet we come to a place and say, well, there's nothing wrong with me, but I can do this different now, or I can do that different now, and it'll have better results with no sense of guilt at all. And that's the awake living, is when we realize, no, there's nothing wrong with me. That's just how I learned to express my life before. I want to do that different now. And I open up to my higher awareness. And the power in that is astonishing or amazing or whatever cool word you want to plug in. It actually can change our thinking patterns and our emotional patterns if we will let it. And I'll get more into that when we get to defenselessness here. But to learn to live in a place where there's nothing wrong with you. And it doesn't matter, I'm just addressing the ego or the human's perspective here. It doesn't matter if I continue to fail. It doesn't matter if I've been beating my head against this and darn it, I keep doing it and it keeps getting me and I can't stop it. There's still nothing wrong with you. You are learning, whether you realize it or not, by being willing for something to become different. But there is never a useful time to look within and say, what's wrong with me? And I know everyone here has had that feeling at one time or another, because every human gets it. And it starts when you're 1 year old and that flower is so pretty and you decide to eat it because it's so beautiful, and somebody says, what's wrong with you? And it begins, this idea that there's something wrong with us. And then, of course, society feeds on that, and I should be different. I should be taller, shorter, wider, skinnier, smarter, dumber. I mean, whatever it is I am, I'm sure that if I was something else, I would be better than what I am. And we build this idea of trying to become better. And it drives many of us our entire life. Well, as soon as you accept there's nothing wrong with you, that whole agenda just dissipates, just fizzles out and dissolves and disappears. If I'm going to do something different, I'm going to do it different because I want to. Oh yeah, I want to learn to do this now. I want to quit doing that now. That's boring now. That just causes me trouble now. Oh, okay. And I just maybe just sit or muse about it, and then I decide I want to do it simply because I want to do it. You know, like your picture taking has been a fun one to watch. That's how life is meant to be lived from our being. And that's, you know, as St. Francis put it, everybody's talking about original guilt. He says, whatever happened to original innocence? That is our innocence. That is the pure life we're created to be that's in us before we added all our self and mutual judgment to it. We can return to that. So.
Yeah, I think it helps, like, not identifying with things. Like, when I was feeling anxious, I felt like, well, what's wrong with me? And then I like kept telling myself, you know, there's nothing wrong with me. The only thing wrong is that I feel anxious and then I feel like there's something wrong, but that anxiety is not me. Those feelings are not me. There's not something wrong with me. So I think, like, helping to not identify with that is helpful.
Thank you. Yes, very much so.
I was able to look at that from a different perspective.
Okay.
Because rather than say, what is wrong with me, because I'm not perfect. But, no, I was able to early on say what's different. And it's because, it's not because I got hit by a semi. Because I did. I got hit by a semi. But push that aside, 10 years earlier, I hit a house on a motorcycle, rattled my brain, and I knew something was different. Not wrong, different. Because it was in the brain. It was in the brain. It was my thoughts, it was my beliefs, and it was different. And I figured if I could figure out what was different about my thinking, my beliefs, and my thoughts, I would have the cure for my brain damage. And eventually I realized that it was just nothing I could do about that. You know, that damage had occurred. So I didn't go on thinking, well, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
I worked with what I got.
Yeah.
I worked with how I was. And that's how I made it. Well, so I made it here.
Yeah.
You know.
Awesome.
Instead of when I was born.
Yeah.
So that's, I believe that what you're saying is very, very applicable to my situation, where I suffered a brain injury, and my brain wanted to go around and say, you know, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, and but I was able to proceed a little bit with thought, and I was able to say what's different.
Yeah.
And what can I do to make that different? Okay.
Cool.
Rather than, you know,
Yeah.
So it goes along with what you're teaching.
Yep. It's a very good example.
You
Yeah.
like that?
And that's the thing. We each get these as, that's what I'm always emphasizing. Look to your own experiences. That's a real experience of what I was just jabbering about. So once we identify our own experiences and return to them, saying, well, that helped me with this, I'll go to that place in me again, then we grow in using our awareness. So thank you. Beautiful example. Yeah? Cool. Well, this last little bit's a little bit intense, but it leads into my defenselessness also. And we'll just go with it and see how it happens. As any of you that's been following me on Facebook knows, I've been radically cleaning out my brain and starting over in a lot of ways of thinking. And I used to have all these ideas or beliefs in this awakening, what it would lead to, what it should be, blah, blah. And all any of those ever led to was disappointment and conflict with other people's beliefs. So those all recently disintegrated and left me feeling this place of peace and loving people when I think of them, and that's pretty much all that was left. Well, when you're in that place of peace and love, you just want to share it. Whether it's in the checkout line or whether you're helping somebody that has a problem or you get to do a fun group like this, it wants to share itself. And that's just its nature and nothing you can do about it. You're going to be happy and it's going to get on other people and you'll get used to it. So, but what came out of that in a very strange way that surprised me, which is why I'm going to share this thing. At the latest crazy in our news, the incident in Florida at the school shooting, there was the teacher that stepped in front of the gunman and took several bullets, which meant that was several more students that didn't get bullets. And yet, in a moment, I could feel the space where our mind goes to do something like that. It's not an idea of sacrifice. You don't stand there thinking, oh, well, I'll jump out there and I'll sacrifice myself. It's better that more. You don't have thinking like that when those moments come. You just get impelled by love or peace to do something, and you just do it. And then maybe after you've started to do it, thoughts come, and it's like, holy crap, what am I doing here? But anyway, that man struck me as more awake, more receptive and open to being, and if you want to call it God or whatever, than so many of us that are trying so hard to wake up or be spiritual. He did it without a thought. And from the pictures I saw, to me, it just showed on his face that somehow he understood all this and maybe never has thought about it in his life consciously. But when the moment came and it impelled him, he did it. And the reason I mentioned it, it's a very dramatic example, but as I go into defenselessness, you need to understand that your human mind is scared to death of this place of peace and love. And it's going to give you arguments, perhaps unconsciously even, that don't go there. You're going to have to sacrifice yourself. It's going to cost you. It's going to harm you if you go there. Stay here in your fear and anxiety and make sure you're protecting yourself so you don't do something impulsive and silly out of peace and love. And that becomes a significant fear veil that we have to walk through until we find out that our being never does anything that's unacceptable to us anyway. And at those moments, what we think of as real dramatic, like that man's case, you still have a lucid moment of choice. You're not taken over and hurled into your peace. You have a moment of, my peace wants to do this. That's going to hurt. Oh, I choose my peace. So it's not like you're giving your mind over to some controlling or zoned out space either. And I bring it up, like I say, because the human mind has a lot of fear of going to this place of peace. So, defenselessness. which scares the mind, just that word. Well, if I become defenseless, the world's going to beat me up. Okay, so let's narrow the scale a little bit. When was the last time anyone here was actually in the danger of being physically harmed or shot? An hour ago? Today? Yesterday?
A month ago?
So, why wasn't I completely defenseless, at peace, and in love today? There was no threat. There's nothing pending. There's nothing visible. And I'll, make it practical, make it real. If it's physically threatening, you're allowed to run. You're allowed to slam the door or whatever. You're allowed to run them over with your car. I mean, whatever you want to do. This is not about playing martyr or powerlessness at all. Defenselessness is about empowerment, not powerlessness. And the mind cannot conceive of it. But when we relax and go to our own place of peace and just say, I see where I don't like what they're saying and it's making me really nervous. All right, how can I be at peace with that? Look at the difference in that simple awareness. Instead of, they're making me nervous. How do I get away from this? Or how do I make them stop that? And I'm contracting, as you said, contracting. And in that contraction, I close down my peace and love center because that is a threat out there. Well, I'm not talking again about going unconscious. I'm not talking about ignoring things that you see. But you can deal with it consciously far better in peace than you can in a reactive panic anyway. So it's not costing us anything to say, let me see this in peace. It's actually going to bring us to a calmer, clearer awareness that if I do need to do something, it will come to my mind much more quickly and in better formation of what to do. But what you will find out is 99% of the time there wasn't a threat anyway. There was my perception of a threat, a tone of voice, the way they looked at me, the way they didn't look at me. And I have all these programs running in here from my past that processes my world for threats all the time. And it's always reacting. Okay, that's a little, don't need to worry about that. Don't need to, that one I'm going to worry about, blah, blah, blah. Well, our peace comes when we allow ourselves to just stop running that process that's always evaluating, is there a threat? But for me to drop that, which is becoming defenseless, I have to learn that my place of peace perceives the world actually much more accurately and proposes much more intelligent and sane responses and effective responses than my old mind does or my emotional reactions do. And then decide to go to work. And our work is to look at the situation that's making me anxious, that's making me angry, and say, how can I be at peace with this experience? And then you hear the mind say, I don't want to be at peace. Oh, okay, well, there's that. Start there then. How can I want to be at peace with this experience? And it's like, in a sense, we're selling ourselves a new way of living. But the awareness we talk about is a growing awareness of what I do in there. And I have these abilities to make choices for peace and for love. And I either choose to invoke them and follow them, or I choose to throw them out and enact some kind of fearful or angry reaction instead. And that awareness continues to grow. And I'm I'm sorry if you're kind of new to this, but it's too late. You already got that awareness now, and you're never going to be able to just let it happen and blame it on them. It's like, why am I reacting to that so bad? I mean, that, and now awareness is present. Actually, there's a whole lot of misery in this world that's due to partial awareness. Sarcasm is one of them, where partial awareness lets you see how screwed up something is, but you don't know that you can join with it in peace and bring it to peace with you. So it comes out as sarcasm, a kind of self-protection from what you're seeing, because you see it very clearly and everybody else seems to think it's normal and okay, but that's partial awareness. Well, use it. Go with it. But then add, how can I perceive this in peace? How can I be at peace with it? And then the last step, how can I bring peace to it? So that's it. As I say every week, that's the one and only fundamental practice in awakening. And each week is simply looking at something in our mind that keeps us from doing that. And that's why the focus on defenselessness tonight is, yes, I do have reactions, probably a few thousand of them, and that's perfectly fine. And there's nothing wrong with me because they're in there. That's what got built in the past. It's okay. But I can learn to let my higher mind or higher awareness bring me to peace instead of following through with that reaction. Oh, am I willing to drop my urge to react? That's defenselessness when I am. And again, I say, it's not asking you to put yourself in harm's way, but become aware of those hundreds of times a day. I mean, you can be walking down the street or sitting at work and just think of somebody and something that happened yesterday or last week, and then up comes all this defense and this arguing. You're in your head talking to them and telling them why you're right and they're wrong. And it's like, I could just be thinking of them in peace instead. Oh, no. No way I'm going to think. Well, there's an opportunity. There's no threat at all. It's just you in your head. They aren't even there. It doesn't even exist. And yet, so defenselessness is our willingness to begin letting our awareness show us where we run these programs of anxiety and anger, which then build into a lifestyle of fear and stress and other strange behavior patterns. This is the way out, is by becoming aware of them individually and saying, well, how could I be at peace with this? And become willing to be at peace. Once we start that, we will find out through experiences, not only can I be at peace, but then there's like a connecting thing that goes out from me, and it actually helps the other people in a situation start to become more peaceful too. And can I promise you it's 100%? No. But I can promise you that fear and anger are 100% in the results they're going to produce. If going for peace gives you 80% or 90%, it's a pretty good gain. It's worth the effort. In time, your own being will so much value peace and love, it'll be 100% to you, that you won't leave the choice for peace, because that's what I want. I won't leave it. And if I do slip out, like Susie's little example, the peace has become like a bungee cord, and it just yanks me right back to itself again in very short order, because I'm not defending my reactions as being useful or good for anyone. So, and just to add one tiny thing to end this also works both ways. If I am looking out and somebody is telling me that I am making them uncomfortable or bothering them or whatever, and I'm thinking, but I'm just me being me, I become defenseless to that too. And I just say, I just want us to be at peace. So whether it's them that's got to change or it's me, I don't care. If it's me, I'm willing to have my mind changed. I'm willing to be aware of if I'm being a jerk, let me see it. And maybe I'm not. And it's just their sensitivity from their reaction. Let them see it. But I don't defend myself either. And that's the other part of this, of defenselessness is dropping it both ways. I will not react to how they're being, and I will go to peace anyway and offer to give peace to them. And if they're telling me I'm the one causing stress or discomfort or fear or anger, I'm willing to say, well, okay, if I am, I'll be willing to see it and let that change up, instead of saying, well, no, I'm Justin, and that's the story of me that I mentioned I would touch on, is when I have to justify how I'm being. Well, of course, I'm being what I thought was best up until a moment ago. But I didn't know to choose peace until a moment ago either. So if I get that coming back at me, instead of defending myself, I just relax and say, I just want to be at peace with you in my mind. Sometimes it's good to say it out loud too, but you'll know. And be willing, because as Susie pointed out, those old patterns of behavior and reaction aren't who I am. My anxiety is not who I am. My anger is not who I am. My fear is not who I am. They're just patterns that got programmed into this brain and neural network. And they're not who I am. It's just the way I've been reacting or interacting with my world. I can just let them be changed, and I'm not changing, except I get to be more peaceful and happier. Because when you're peaceful, you're happy and loving, which means helpful, and it's all natural. You don't even have to try. You just melt and, okay, this is going to be good. I see that now. I feel it. I wonder how. And it's like no mental games, no positive thinking needed. Just, I feel that desire for peace. Yeah, I want that. Let's see how it works. So, I think that's good. Thanks, Gary.
I was going to say I had the same experience as what you're talking about this week.
Oh, cool.
I was at work. I forgot last week was Valentine's Day. That was nice. And then I think I was at work maybe on Thursday. And, I had a couple, and they've been clients of mine for 10 years. And they've been married for 60 years, and they're, I think, 84 and 88 or something.
Oh, wow.
So, and they're people that I've been trying to help for a long time, in love, and trying to get them to do the things that I think I thought are best.
Mm-hmm.
And about an hour into our conversation, and I've had many, many, many conversations over the years, I could feel myself getting frustrated.
Uh-huh.
And I was able to see it so clearly because I haven't gotten frustrated lately, visibly with somebody. Yeah. And I'm thinking, these are people that are like my grandparents that I'm getting frustrated with. And the woman, and I could feel myself, and I was thinking to myself, why am I getting frustrated right now? But the woman immediately said, Adam, I see that you're shutting down right now. And I was like, I am. Yeah, I am. And she I'm within a split second, called me out.
Yeah.
And it was like the universe, was confirming that. And she said, listen, I know why you're shutting down, because I've been married to the man for 60 years, and he's set in his ways. It's nothing that you're doing or you're saying. It's because this is how he is. And so it's kind of like what you were saying, it was an outside, it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I could feel myself doing it.
Yeah.
I wanted to join in love, and like I felt myself not wanting to get frustrated. This woman literally acknowledges it the second it happens.
Yeah.
And then, 5 minutes later, we're hugging,
Yeah.
and I'm just telling them, the reason. I felt the reason why. I was getting a little defensive, like why I was getting that way was because I really care about you, and it was just showing, it wasn't showing in the way that I wanted it to show.
Yeah.
And that was just really a cool experience. And for me to see that, because in the past, I would have probably carried that on.
Yeah.
And I would have felt righteous, or I would have felt like, well, I'm right, and I used to do that on occasion, where I would feel like, why don't these people understand?
Yeah.
And all that. And instead, I was just kind of like joined in love after it was over, and saw it for what it was, and it was a really cool experience. So now, I thought about it all tonight. I thought about it the whole week, and kind of as a nice example of
That's a perfect
the fact that I
example.
caught myself, and I was able to see that, and I didn't let it go. And even in my relationship with Jessie, that's been a really good thing that she said is, hey, I've noticed lately that if something is happening, you're not carrying it on anymore.
Cool.
It's more short-lived. And so that's the best that I can do, is just acknowledge it, make it shorter,
Yeah.
and return two piece,
Right.
which felt great.
Awesome.
So anyway, that was what happened to me this week, and it was very similar to what you were talking about, the experience that I had.
Again, that's a perfect example. Thank you. Because that's it in reality, not in theory. Yeah. Awesome.
I had an experience yesterday. I've been really having a hard time with my boyfriend lately, and we feel a lot of pressure in our relationship. We just found out that we're having babies, so we're have a lot of anxiousness about that. So I feel like sometimes it gets brought up into situations that have absolutely nothing to do with a child.
Yeah.
And yesterday, he got upset with me and said I was making him feel like I didn't want him because I wanted to go to sleep. And when he was trying to express that to me, it was just automatically I was just on the defense. That's not my intentions. I just want you to know, and I just want to love you. And it just feels like that's where it comes from, is my love for him, and it's not being expressed the way that I need it to come out, and the way that I want him to feel it.
Yeah.
And without actually sitting there and listening to him and his feelings, I'm just automatically no, you can't feel that way. That's not the way that I need. And just recognizing that I don't have to choose anger in those situations. And that I can accept what he's saying.
Yeah.
And not give it back.
That's very lucid awareness, and that's a very key practice in relating that we teach. It's okay that you're saying what you're saying, thinking what you're thinking, and want what you want. Mm-hmm. And here's me. This is what I think and what I want. But there's no attack or defense either way.
Right.
And it sounds like you're already headed there. And you can let it keep moving and just ask your own, higher sense to help you let that change up for you. So it's much sweeter when you do it that way. Just to be able to be honest and let them be honest. Cool. Good job.
Congratulations.
That's it. We have to learn the power of our higher awareness to change our humanness, our human mind and emotions. Because like in that example, you're aware now that you want something to be different. And all we have to do is say, I want to be able to do this peacefully now, and let higher awareness will guide you in realizing and what to say, and it'll lead us real quickly into the new way of peace. So I always like to reemphasize that every chance I get. Don't underestimate the power of higher awareness, and always just turn to it and ask it. A little help with this, please, or thank you for showing me, I want more of it, but a conscious acknowledgement to it speeds this up tremendously. Yeah.
Tim, I think when you mentioned the higher awareness, I think it's almost first on your signals, because you're going to get, in a nanosecond, you can have 100 million. I don't even know if that's, I think it's true. I think you can have 100 million different responses, thoughts, feelings, and usually I find for me, the first one was right. I have to sort through all these other ones in a nanosecond, in that same nanosecond. Nanosecond, like, real short. So, I'm not sure I want to do it. But that's how fast the brain works. And in that nanosecond, if I can remember the one that it was too, because me, I have a memory problem. And so, I go like, what the heck was the best? It was back to the first one. I can't remember. But you young folks can. And that first one is very much to be looked at as the best higher response. You're most lucid. And you're most honest. And if you want to use that, of course, too, I mean, unless you're the president. So, yeah, that's congratulations on your baby.
Thank you.
And on that, when you realize you can't remember it, you can ask for a rerun, and it will bring it back again.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to.
If it can bring it once, it can bring it again.
I thought that's why I had kids, so they could remind me of stuff. They remind me of their stuff.
Yeah, it's all meant to be a fun dance. I forgot for a little while, but it's a good time to remember that.